Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kelsey Staffstrom. I am the Manager of Clinical Education at Pure Encapsulations, and I want to thank you for being here today to dive into creating clarity in the clinic using PureGenomics. It is 4 o'clock in the afternoon here on the East Coast, and so we're going to get started. I do have a few quick announcements. Today we'll have presentations by Dr. Nathan Morris and Dr. Kelly Heim, who are both co-creators of PureGenomics. Kara Ware, who is a board-certified health coach and business integration expert, and Lori Holt, who is your support specialist all-star for the PG team. So unfortunately today, Dr. Morris will not be able to join us for the Q&A sessions, but our other panelists are here. They are experts and they will have your questions covered. So today's event will have a slightly different structure than normal. So I want to give you a preview on what to expect. So we will have a series of tutorials for you today. They have been pre-recorded. I will play a tutorial for you, and following that tutorial, there will be a short Q&A pertinent to that tutorial. So feel free to submit your questions into the questions tab at any time. You can find that on your control panel. After we've played all of the tutorials, I will open the Q&A up to any questions relating to any part of today's event or any lingering questions you have from the tutorials. So as I mentioned, the tutorials are pre-recorded. These will be available to you via follow-up email as well as online at puregenomics.com or on the PureGenomics YouTube page. As I mentioned, the questions can be submitted in the control panel, and I will make sure that your questions can get answered by our panelists today. Make sure that you're checking out the chat on your control panel for comments, links, resources, things like that. You will also be getting resources in your follow-up email. Anything that's mentioned today, you will be getting in that email. So keep an eye out for that in the next 3 to 5 business days. If you're having any audio or visual issues, and I know that GoToWebinar can sometimes give us difficulties, please make sure to first check the settings on your control panel under where it says audio. Make sure you have the right hardware set up. You can test it just to be sure. And if you've done that, you can message me in the questions tab, or you can consult support.goto.com. They have a lot of great resources that can possibly help with your individual needs. So before we jump into today's event, I think it's important to start on the same page. So when we're talking about PureGenomics, we're talking about nutrigenomics. And I want to start us off with a poll, which should be popping up on your screen now. Give it one moment. All right. Do you currently use nutrigenomics or nutritional genomics in your practice? All right, I see some questions, some answers coming in. This is great. All right, pretty evenly split so far. We'll give it another 10 to 15 seconds or so. All right, bunch of yeses. And it doesn't have to be PureGenomics. It can be other nutrigenomics, or if you're interested in it. All right, 3 more seconds. Lingering people coming in here, answering the poll. Love to see it. Thank you all for being here. All right, so we're pretty evenly split, it looks like. So it's about 30% for each of them, and that's really interesting. So we had a lot of people that are already using it, people that aren't using it, and people that are really interested in using it. So I think that this is going to be a really great presentation for all of you, and perhaps in different capacities. And I hope that we can help elucidate some clarity for those that are looking for it. So first, to touch on what PureGenomics is, it is a first of its kind complementary nutrigenomics service on behalf of Pure Encapsulations, and it makes it simple for you to bring the science of nutrigenomics to your practice with resources and support at every step of the way. So it translates a patient's genetic data previously collected by 23andMe or Ancestry into easy to interpret reports that identify scientifically credible genetic variations, and it sorts them into 9 associated trait categories that can affect patients' health, like cardiovascular or gastrointestinal health. So using these findings or reports provide easy to understand nutrition, supplement, and lifestyle recommendations that are tailored to each patient's unique genetic needs. And so with that primer, and now that we have people strolling in, I'd like to get started with the first tutorial. Once again, please remember to submit your questions. I see a couple coming in already, and I will go ahead and share this tutorial with you.
PureGenomics is still, at its core, what we have come to know and love. It's uploaded genomic data from 23andMe or Ancestry with a generated report linking patients' genetics with diet, lifestyle, and supplement recommendations. But now there's a lot more. There's a smart questionnaire to deepen personalization for a patient's diet, lifestyle, and dietary supplement recommendations. And this is basically a short optional questionnaire that takes 5 to 7 minutes for patients to complete. And this is done online in the patient's PureGenomics patient portal. You will be able to view the patient's questionnaire results from either your patient list or from the banner at the top of your patient's dashboard. This smart questionnaire is a dynamic response questionnaire. And that's important because this means that the next question will be informed by the patient's previous responses. So there's not a lot of extra questions that are not pertinent to the patient. And by utilizing the questionnaire, PureGenomics is able to refine the recommendations of the genetic report. And finally, and most importantly, their goals and these considerations are dovetailed into the lifestyle and product recommendations along with the SNPs for each individual patient. Next, there's labs. You know, we ask the question, do all genetic polymorphisms present in an individual? And the answer is no. And to understand objectively whether SNPs are being expressed in an individual, it's through labs. And now PureGenomics is offering an optional input. Lab assessments help us to connect genotype with phenotype. This is super exciting, and adding labs to your patient's report is simple. You just upload a PDF from LabCorp or Quest, and then an AI-driven engine extracts the data that is relevant to the traits and PureGenomics. You can see a list of biomarkers associated with PureGenomics SNPs by navigating to the Upload Lab feature on your patient list. The patient lab results are then conveniently displayed in the assessment section of the report to provide input on nutrient status. And then finally, there's supplement recommendations. We have heard you, and we've transformed this experience to decrease time spent creating supplement recommendations for your patient. First, there's a prioritized list of supplement recommendations, and those products which provide the most coverage for the patient's genetic risk variants. So that takes out a lot of the guesswork for you. And when you choose to view and edit suggestions, you will see tags listed under each product with the associated SNPs. These tags are patient specific. And once you select the suggestions to compensate for the patient's genetic risk variants and click Next, you can now select products from the entire Pure Encapsulations catalog. To increase efficiency, the supplement doses, quantities, time of day are all populated based on the product ingredient panel. You have the ability to customize the dosage recommendations and write specific instructions for each patient. You have now turned the suggestions into your recommendations and can send the protocol to your patient. There's the ability to send supplement recommendations to your patient's PureGenomics portal as well. The patient will receive an email to log in and view your supplement recommendations. Now let's take a look at how to get started using the enhanced features with a new patient. First, we're going to start by creating or logging into our account. This is your dashboard. You can see recent activity and click to view patients. So let's add a new patient. You simply add in their information, making sure that this is their current contact information. Well, the first step is genomics. You can't have a genetics report without genomics. The easiest way to get this information into PureGenomics is to have your patient upload it themselves so they can select that here. This will initiate a series of emails that will help your patient get signed up for PureGenomics and instructions on how to upload their data. The genetic SNPs included in PureGenomics are hand-selected because we only want to include the SNPs that are strongly backed by research and science. That said, there are many other SNPs included in our supplemental report that have some scientific validity, but we don't include in the standard report because we don't feel they are quite ready for prime time. Eventually, some may migrate to the PureGenomics report as more research is published. The next step is the questionnaire. This is the opportunity to get insights into your patient's top objectives, their environment, allergens, and goals. As I mentioned, the questionnaire is dynamic, which means the questions asked are customized to your patient's responses. This feedback is essential to a complete patient encounter and will be incredibly helpful for tailoring your conversation of the report with your patient. Finally, we have the labs. Click the practitioner upload. As mentioned, this is a new feature and we will continue to add more as time goes on, but this is a great group of labs to get started with. Finally, you can save these selections if this is the plan you hope to use for future patients as well. For your current patients, you will find a transition guide on the education landing page to guide you to begin implementing the SMART questionnaire. Up next, Dr. Kelly Heim talks about the science behind PureGenomics, how to learn the modifiable traits, and how to prepare for a patient encounter. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I want to welcome our panelists to turn on their videos and their microphones. Thank you for joining us, and Kara Ware and Lori Holt. Awesome. So thank you for joining us. So we just heard from, hopefully heard from Dr. Nathan Morris. I apologize for the technical difficulties about some of the new features in the newest evolution of PureGenomics. So this is including a SMART questionnaire. It's including integrated lab results into your genomics report, and it's also including supplement recommendations. And so one of the most critical pieces of this is the genetics. And so Lori, can you just explain once again for our audience where they can go and get these genetic tests and why genetic testing is such a great option?
Sure. So our platform is compatible with data from 23andMe and Ancestry. Those are the only two companies that will work for use on our platform. Those test kits can be purchased on either company's website, but it is also important to know that a lot of retail stores like Walgreens, Target, CVS, they also sell these test kits as well. Throughout the year, the companies do offer different sales on the test kits. Most of the time, it's just the standard $99 test kit, but you could get it as cheap as I've seen it as cheap as $79. Sometimes they'll run like a Father's Day or Mother's Day special where you can buy two, get one free or something like that. What else did I want to say?
So that's awesome. So it's basically they don't need to get a very expensive genetic test. They can get the $100 test and it's going to have all of the information they need, right?
Yes, they don't need to buy the more expensive kits, just the basic test kit.
That's awesome. And so once we do have if you already have your genetic test, say that I'm a practitioner and I got my own genetic testing done through Ancestry, is there a way that I can kind of try out on this with my own data?
Yep, you can certainly.
As a patient?
Yeah, and we recommend practitioners do that as step one. Once they set up their account, we always recommend creating a patient account for yourself. Right now, I would say just add yourself in as you would a regular patient. Don't click on the add myself as a patient button because for some reason it's not allowing you to see the new features when you do it like that. So just add yourself in as a regular patient and you'll be able to use all of the new features on the platform.
Okay, great. And so once somebody has started to have their patients upload their own genetic data, how do they upload the lab? So we saw in Nathan's tutorial that you can upload from LabCorp requests. I've seen that some people are asking, do you have to manually enter the lab values or does it automatically populate?
Both. So you can upload an entire file and it'll pull through any labs that correspond with the SNPs in the report, or you can manually enter the information as well.
Perfect. And so we have a follow-up about the 23andMe reports, just to jump back to that really quick. So just clarifying that a simple ancestry report, do they need, say from 23andMe, do they need the health and ancestry, or can they just pay for the ancestry kit? Kara?
Yes, that's what Lori was saying, was just the
Yeah.
basic kit is all you need. And you can use any kits that these direct-to-consumer companies sell. The raw data, which is what we interpret, is the same. So either test kit, but as little as $99 will get a patient started.
Great, and that's a good point. It's the raw data that we're taking from that, and we're interpreting it through our own algorithms. So I have a question about consent and data. So when you submit a genetic test on, say, 23andMe, you have to select on if you allow them to use your information for research purposes. For the data that is through PureGenomics, is that protected for our patients?
Yeah. We don't sell any information. I myself, if someone calls in looking for support, I can't see any raw data at all. So all I can see is that a patient's data was successfully uploaded on such and such a date, either by the patient or the practitioner. And we have a lot of measures in place to protect the accounts as well. So if a practitioner goes to log in, or a patient too, if they go to log in and they have 5 failed login attempts, they'll be completely locked out and they'll have to call us to get that account unlocked. And that personal data is encrypted, and we do not have access to this data except when we need to provide support to the user.
Great. And Kara, maybe this is a question for you. Do patients need to sign additional consent if the LabCorp results will be shared on PureGenomics?
No, we don't have additional consent.
So, right?
That is, yeah, that's data between the patient and the provider receiving that based on ordering the labs.
Right. So it's if the patient has allowed the provider, then it's through the provider.
Correct.
Great. So somebody is asking if other labs will be added, and yes, the hope is that other labs will be added as this continues to grow and as our algorithm gets more and more developed and stronger. So yes, the hope is that we will be adding additional labs. So this is an easy question, but Kelly, how much does it cost for somebody to use PureGenomics?
This is my favorite question. It costs nothing. All you have to pay for is the actual 23andMe or Ancestry kit. What's more is once you do this test, you don't have to ask the patient to retest because your DNA never changes. The good thing is lifestyle and environment can change. So the genetics themselves don't. But what we're doing is making our environment, diet, lifestyle right for our genetics. So the value of DNA is really great in terms of communicating to the patient what they get for the money that they spend. It's just a one-time expense for them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because out of the tests out there, it is affordable, generally speaking, and it's nice that you can get all of this information and all of these actionable results from an affordable test that you only have to do one time, really. So that's great. So we are going to, I see there's some more questions coming in. I will flag these and bring them back into the group general Q&A at the end. But I'd like to get moving with the next tutorial. So this one is by Dr. Kelly Heim, and I will play that now, and feel free to continue to put questions into the chat as this goes on. So Dr. Heim will be talking about the essential elements of the PureGenomics report.
Now that you've listened to the first tutorial, which gives you an overview of the PureGenomics platform, I'm going to take the next few minutes to walk through a PureGenomics report. We've put a lot of information into the system. We have genetic data, lab results, and smart questionnaire answers. The output is a report that covers approximately 50 different traits. You can review this report in 3 different ways. We have the PDF report, the gene analysis, and the trait category overview. We've created these 3 different options so that you can easily see the information in a way that makes the most sense to you. Keep in mind that all of the information is exactly the same regardless of which view you select. Now I'll walk you through a sample report to demonstrate how to prepare for a patient encounter. If you're new to PureGenomics, it helps to become familiar with the traits that it covers. Recall that a trait is simply a characteristic or clinical feature. When you log in, go to View Patients and click View the Report. So you'll see the 9 trait categories that are covered in the report. We have vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s, detoxification, weight management, cardiovascular health, and so forth. You can click here to see all of the traits included in a given category. So let's click choline and see what we find. So up top, you'll see the trait with an overview of its importance below. You can watch a trait tutorial, which covers basic information about the SNPs and about this trait specifically. All of the trait tutorials are available on the PureGenomics YouTube channel. Under Implications, you will find information about what the patient result might mean clinically. To the right, we provide assessment recommendations with suggested methods and reference ranges that will help you confirm whether the genetic variant is phenotypically expressed and clinically relevant. Dr. Morris introduced the lab integration feature in the first tutorial. You'll see diet and lifestyle recommendations. This section indicates certain foods that your patient might want to prioritize. These dietary modifications are informed in part by the patient's responses to the Smart Q, if you've elected to include that feature for this patient. We introduced the Smart Q, or the Smart Questionnaire, in the first tutorial. Below this, you'll find the affected single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. Recall that SNPs are simple DNA sequence variations that influence the trait indicated. Note that the RS number is provided. You can copy and paste this number into databases like PubMed, Litvar, and Google Scholar if you wish to examine published studies on this individual marker. A risk variant is a specific genetic variant where a diet or lifestyle modification may improve health. It's easy to see whether the patient has a risk variant. Simply look for the yellow exclamation point. All of the dietary recommendations and personalized guidance provided by PureGenomics are specific to the patient's unique genotypes, so all you have to do is read the report. Sometimes a genetic variant confers an advantage or a clinical benefit. In these cases, you will see an enhanced benefit symbol next to the result. The scientific rating is a relative indicator of the scientific evidence supporting the relationship between the genotype and the trait or phenotype. A higher rating means that the information you see under Implications is backed by larger studies. A low rating of 1 or 2 means that the information is based on smaller studies whose findings have yet to be replicated by larger investigations. The PDF report is just another way of looking at the same information. You have the trait overview, the implications, scientific rating, the relevant SNPs, assessment methods, and recommendations. We provide a variety of complementary resources so that you can learn about genetic polymorphisms, their clinical meaning, and the science behind them. You'll also see that diagrams are available for a variety of different traits, showing where different SNPs fit in a metabolic pathway or process. Some traits are more complex and can't be rendered in a simple pathway format, which is why you won't see illustrations for every single trait. Before we wrap up, let's briefly go back to the report. Some practitioners prefer the trait category dashboard, while others prefer to see the report in its entirety when preparing for a patient encounter. Remember, it's the same information, just a different way of viewing it. You can choose to see all of the traits, or just the actionable ones that inform a diet, supplement, or lifestyle change. You can find the gene analysis summary by scrolling down past the trait dashboard. You can view all 9 categories without having to click through each one individually, which can make preparing for a patient encounter more efficient. Needless to say, there is a lot of information here. Your patient's existing health objectives should always guide your navigation of a genetic report. Pay special attention to the trait categories that align with those goals and deprioritize the others. It's not advisable to go with all of the recommendations that PureGenomics gives you, unless they are specific to those high-priority health and wellness objectives. Regardless of what those goals are, we recommend that you start with a solid nutritional foundation, which brings us to the vitamin, mineral, and omega-3 category we were just viewing a moment ago. Here you can identify potential nutritional gaps resulting from genetic factors affecting micronutrient absorption, transport, or utilization, the methylation SNPs that inform folate, vitamin B12, riboflavin, and vitamin B6 recommendations, are included in this category. Let's take a look at the provider PDF report. Here you'll find a gene summary which gives you all of the patient's genetic results in a table format. This is a very easy way to view all of the information in one place. You might find this helpful when you're planning for the patient encounter and identifying questions that you might want to ask or lab testing that you might want to consider. The remainder of the PDF report is the same as the gene analysis summary. In the PDF, you'll see a trait and trait categories infographic, which may be useful when discussing the information with the patient. As most of you know, nutrigenomics is a rapidly evolving field. To keep pace with advances in the evidence, reports will automatically be updated as new gene-diet relationships are characterized and confirmed. The periodic addition of new SNPs and updated information creates a dynamic, evolving report at no cost with no need to retest. Remember that PureGenomics is a complementary service committed to bringing the science to your practice so that you can focus on helping your patients. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you do not have an account yet, you can sign up at puregenomics.com. Up next, we'll uncover how to use a PureGenomics report in a patient encounter so that it's meaningful and empowering.
All right, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that excellent tutorial. So I invite my panelists to rejoin me on video and on mic. Oh, there you guys are. All right, perfect. Let me stop sharing my screen for a moment. So there's so much to learn in a report, right? There's so much information, and I don't want this to be overwhelming. So what would your recommendations be, Kelly, for people getting started? Where can they go to either learn about the traits or learn about the genes themselves?
Well, great question. The first place you want to go is obviously the report, and I'm not just saying that to try to be funny, but we put a lot of effort into giving you the facts that you really need right there in the report. So while we do offer complementary educational resources for you that you can use to gain a better understanding, they're optional. So you don't need to engage in further education to use PureGenomics effectively. Now, that being said, it's a great way of educating yourself if you're not sure where to go for reliable information, which can be a challenge. There's not a lot out there as far as practitioner resources, information you can trust that's clinically relevant. So we put it all together for you. And the quickest way to learn about each trait and the SNPs that determine that trait is with a trait tutorial, and these are about 1 minute long. They pretty much cover the vast majority of traits in PureGenomics. They're all on our YouTube channel, the PureGenomics YouTube channel. You can link out via PureGenomics. If you just want to learn more, just a minute of your time can make all the difference in allowing you to feel really confident about what this information means, both scientifically and on a practical clinical translational level, so that you can turn that knowledge into action. So the trait tutorials would be my recommendation. We also have research abstracts that go through each of the SNPs and the traits that they're associated with, and you can read those studies. So we provide the abstracts in a PDF format that you can easily download. And like I said in the tutorial, you can always copy and paste the RS number into any search engine. That would be any internet search engine, or I would strongly suggest Google Scholar or PubMed or Litvar. So lots of ways you can get more information, but start with the trait tutorials.
And actually, that's perfect, because I just put the link to the trait tutorials in the chat. So directly to the YouTube channel, the YouTube playlist that has all of those there. Like you said, they're just about a minute or two long, and they're really great. They're also linked out from the report, which is nice. I've also put in there the Nutrigenomics course, which Kelly, you created. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, just as other basic education in case people want to supplement their understanding?
Absolutely. So I put together a Nutrigenomics course for healthcare providers who are either just getting started or really want to get down to the scientific facts about nutrition and genetics and how the two interact and how that can influence clinical decision making in a positive way. So if you want to check out the course, it's completely free, it's complimentary. It probably will take you about 4 hours to complete. there are quizzes, lots of visual aids, some video. I record the lectures. There are a few lectures in there covering pretty much every topic that we talked about in the tutorial that you just saw, ranging from just basic nutrient needs to cardiometabolic health, mental health. We have immune health. So I strongly encourage that you consider checking out that course. It's, believe me, I've been through many courses in my life, and it was my goal to create a real experience for you. It's not going to be dry, it's not going to be boring, it's very engaging, so I strongly encourage you to just check it out, and I think you'll learn a lot from it.
Yeah, I enjoyed going through it, and I have a background in genomics as well, and I thought that was such a great resource just to even brush up. And honestly, I feel like I learned more things on there, and it is engaging, and it's easy to get into. So that
One
link
detail
is also available.
I just wanted to add,
Yeah.
Kelsey, if you want to learn how to learn about genetics, take this course. It's probably the biggest favor you can do for yourself, is to learn how to learn about this field, because there's a way to go about gathering information from those medical search engines. And I go through a tutorial that shows you how to search the literature for information on the SNP. It's not something that would immediately make sense to you. So even if that's the only thing that you hope to get out of it, if you just watch that 5-minute module, you will take away skills that will really last a lifetime and give you the compass that you need to navigate this sometimes very confusing and overwhelming field.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So Kara, I have a question that I think you can help answer. Are they required to use the SMART questionnaire or the lab results in a report?
No, those are optional. So when you add a patient, there are options for you to choose if you'd like to deploy that SMART questionnaire and upload labs. So completely personalized for each patient, where you can save your settings and have the same settings for each patient you add.
Exactly right. And we saw that briefly in Nathan's tutorial where he clicked the save features, but it is important to note that you can change it for each patient based off of what they need or what's right for their situation. And the point is that this is personalization, right? So you're able to personalize it.
And the SMART questionnaire does deepen the personalization of the diet and lifestyle and
yes,
supplement.
Yeah, exactly. It's a SMART questionnaire, so it's going to be a dynamic response based off of what the patient gives you and how it helps in the report. So speaking of the report and the labs, Kelly, maybe this is a question for you. When the lab assessment pops up into the report, what are we saw it quickly in your tutorial, but what does that look like? Are we looking at reference ranges, optimal ranges, just the patient range?
Well, reference ranges will be included, so you don't have to have them memorized. And that answers I believe that answers part of the question. Was there something else?
People were wondering if I believe it's the reference ranges. People were also asking if that's the same thing as functional or optimal ranges, which I believe changes based off of.
We have always used reference ranges, typically from Mayo Clinic or LabCorp, something that aligns with the consensus. Now, keep in mind that that may or may not be optimal based on other training that you've received in the area that you're looking at. So please use your own clinical knowledge whenever it's applicable. And we're doing our best to give you information that's reliable, but it might not completely line up with what you've heard from other sources.
Right. And I think that gets into the last question that I want to ask about this section, is about the scientific integrity and the scientific rating system. You mentioned the abstracts, which are available to everyone on PureGenomics via the education there, and I'll show you how to access that as well. But could you just speak to the scientific rating system and why this is so important?
Yeah, so we've all heard, is nutritional genomics really ready for prime time? Well, some of it is and some of it is not. So we bring you the information that is. Now, that being said, not all of the genotype-phenotype relationships are backed with the same rigor of scientific data. So we wanted to communicate to you on a SNP by SNP basis where that evidence currently stands. So we use a 5-star rating system that's in the report, so you have it handy when you're looking at the information. And a 5-star would be based on one study of 5,000 or more subjects that has been replicated at least once, independently in a different population, different research group, usually often different population. So we have replication, we have a high level of certainty that relationship is true. Now, if you go down to a 1-star, let's say the relationship between cystathionine beta synthase, or the CBS gene, there's a SNP in there, and vitamin B6 requirements. That is a 1-star, I think. So 1-star just means that it's based on a smaller study that has yet to be replicated by a different lab, a different research group, a different population. So it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just not at the level of certainty that we prefer. So for many of the SNPs, you'll see a 3 or a 4-star, and that's really based on studies of 800, 2,000 plus subjects. So these ratings will change with time, for sure. So you can always be very confident that the star rating that you see represents the current evidence that is available on PubMed, and we provide the abstracts so you can really see where we're getting this information. So we're completely transparent about the studies that we use for the rating system.
Right, and we're constantly assessing, like you said, and it's important to have the integrity, and I appreciate that it's all rated and that there's been so much consideration put into what studies are supporting the data that we're sharing. All right, so still a lot of questions there, so we'll have a lot for the open Q&A, but I do want to get to the last tutorial by none other than Kara Ware. And this is about how to use PureGenomics in your practice, how to get started on Monday morning. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video, and I will see you panelists after that.
For this tutorial, I will demonstrate how to use the visual tools provided in PureGenomics to facilitate a conversation that's relatable, meaningful, and empowering. I will also give tips to successfully integrate PureGenomics into your practice workflow. Genetics can be intimidating for both the provider and the patient. How do providers interpret and prioritize information provided on a nutrigenomics report and communicate the information so it's not intimidating or makes patients feel genetically flawed? Throughout this tutorial, you will hear me use trait language rather than the SNPs. Some patients will know MTHFR. However, hearing TCF7L2, BCM01, GSTP1 will be a foreign language. The trait language, glucose metabolism, vitamin A, environmental toxins, are much more relatable and meaningful to a patient. The education level of your patients regarding genomics will likely be variable. It is important to establish basic understanding of genomics with each patient before you begin to explain their report. As the Business Integration Advisor for PureGenomics, I have a Nutrigenomics patient scripts and workflow integration models free PDF download on my website, karawarecoaching.com/Nutrigenomics for you to use. When starting a patient encounter, make sure the patient has their patient report printed so as to take notes during your consultation. PureGenomics provides the patient their version of the report since it is data they have already purchased. The patient report does not include supplement or lab recommendations. The PureGenomics platform has 2 visual tools that are excellent to facilitate your conversation so the information is not intimidating. The 2 visual tools are the trait category grid drop-down list on the patient's dashboard and the trait and trait category infographic on either the practitioner or the patient's PDF report. The first step in addressing your patient's top concerns is knowing where to look first in the report. So say your patient's top objectives are mood and weight management. Let the patient know the first step to addressing these top objectives is to understand their nutritional gaps within the vitamins, minerals, and omega-3 category. Making sure these key nutrients are at optimal levels set the stage for more advanced interventions to be successful. After the vitamin, mineral, omega-3 category, then assess any variance within the cognitive health and memory category, and then the weight management category to identify genetic underpinnings that may be contributing to their top objectives. If a patient is struggling with mood and there are indeed risk variants like this patient, then it's comforting for the patient to hear from you, hey, this is not a lack of willpower to feel good. You have honest genetic predispositions which may be contributing to the expression of your top objectives. The good news? We can order labs to help determine whether you need specialized support in these areas, and if so, we can determine what supplements might help and select the diet and lifestyle changes that are reasonable for you to begin implementing, and we can follow your progress. Another visual tool that some providers like to use in a patient encounter are the diagrams. It's important to note the exclamation points that indicate a consider action are patient specific. Before moving on, check back in with your patient and ask what they heard. That way, you can help fill in any information gap so the patient fully comprehends the information you are sharing. Next, review the new optimized diet and lifestyle recommendations. These suggestions are now organized similar to a functional medicine lifestyle prescription and are consolidated in a convenient new lifestyle recommendation summary that is presented in an easy to understand format. If you elect to use the SMART questionnaire, then the diet and lifestyle recommendations will be further personalized. If the patient completed the SMART questionnaire, you can point out this patient detail section. This section documents the patient's current plan. In these diet and lifestyle sections, you can make personalized recommendations you feel are essential components to the patient's comprehensive plan. Remember to check in with the patient and ask which modifications do they have sufficient motivation, inspiration, and are within their perceived current ability to implement over the next 3 months or until their next follow-up appointment. We all know what really drives the needle in functional medicine is how well our patients can implement the diet and lifestyle recommendations. Be sure to point out the I next to the recommendations to have the patients connect how the lifestyle modifications possibly influences the SNP or genetic variant being addressed. This is why genetics are not our destiny. We now know the recommendations to bypass these common polymorphisms to help promote healthy physiology. The genetic report is an excellent source of inspiration for the modifiable lifestyle changes. It's important to check in with the patient regularly and hear their thoughts and priorities and motivation and perceived current ability about the recommended modifiable changes. These coaching skills help co-create a reasonable, livable, and most importantly, sustainable plan. And then finally, you can recommend the labs that you need to order to investigate further and discuss possible supplement recommendations. A suggestion is to add in to your practice workflow scheduled times to review these filters. Sign up pending, not reviewed, no data. For example, on designated Fridays, either you or your support staff view the list of patients who still need to register. Are those reports ready for you to review? Or those patients who still need to upload data? The following Monday, you or your support staff call patients to help them complete their data upload or their questionnaire or to schedule a follow-up encounter to review their report. Once prospective patients see the value you are bringing and connect with your philosophy of healing and bedside manner, chances are promising they will be ready for a deeper financial an emotional commitment, and convert to becoming a new patient. Remember, genetic variants aren't good or bad. It's the environment in which they're interplaying with. And this is gold when it comes to inspiring patients to successfully implement the diet and lifestyle recommendations. The genomics report is the roadmap to know how to work with rather than against the patient's blueprint. This is an invaluable tool in your toolbox to personalize the modifiable lifestyle recommendations for each patient. So now that you're familiar with PureGenomics reports and dashboard and how the platform can streamline personalization, you're ready to unlock the power of nutrigenomics and help your patients understand the relationship between their genes, their nutrition, and their wellness. And that's the science of it.
I was on mute. Such a great way to wrap up the last tutorial. Thank you, Kara. We have a couple of great questions that are focused on that tutorial, and then I will open it back up to kind of all questions relating to any of the tutorials that you saw today or any lingering questions you have about PureGenomics. So, Kara, I think one of the biggest things that I took away from your tutorial is that you're recommending to start slow, and that will help with not only our own understanding from the practitioner point of view, but also for the patient adoption. So when do you suggest to start adding on more recommendations? Say we've started slow and we've gotten the patient on board. When do we dive deeper?
I think that really depends on each patient. I think we can all manage or observe our patient overwhelm, right? And so honestly, when I work with practitioners about working with patients, it's taking a look at 3-month care plans, right? Like what can we do in 3, 6, 9, 12 months? So what we talked about in that tutorial was establishing the foundation, always looking at the vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s, identifying those nutritional gaps, having lab tests further to really steer the correct dosing, the precise dosing, so that we can move those key essential elements to optimal level and start with the basics. And then again, it's just managing everyone's overwhelm and making sure that we're not recommending more than what is within their reasonable current ability. You'll hear me say that all the time.
Right, I've heard it.
I feel like a bit of a broken record with that.
So you mentioned continually adding or potentially adding more lab assessments, retesting labs and things like that to track progress. Can people retake the SMART questionnaire if things change? How can they talk to their doctors about anything that's changed regarding what they've been asked?
You know, that's a great question because the whole point of functional medicine is to modify our environment, because it is the interplay between the environment and our genetic code that are, you know, truly beginning to manifest each patient's symptom set. And so as their environment changes, of course, you can submit a new questionnaire from the dashboard for the patient to update, to take a look at their current preferences and habits and goals, and begin to continue, right, evolving their lifestyle plan based on their environment and what changes they've already made.
Exactly. It's something that's going to be evolving. We're never just a person stuck in time, right? And hopefully evolving for the better. So your tutorial specifically dived into the patient side a little bit more. And so are there resources that PureGenomics offers to help patients with this process?
So PureGenomics has created patient brochures and video that actually you can embed, which helps to explain the value of nutrigenomics. There are patients that can be somewhat hesitant about genetic testing, so we do have resources for providers when beginning to introduce adding in this clinical decision-making tool into the patient's care. So those are available on the education tab on the dashboard. And then we do also have coaching calls with me, which is really where my expertise is helping to partner with patients so they feel empowered, right, to make these diet and lifestyle choices and changes.
And you also help a lot with business integration, which is great because it's not just the practitioner that gets on board, it's often their whole practice that has to help out with that process. And how has it been working with practitioners? And do you feel like their practice has been able to adopt these different workflow options?
Yeah, it's fun. I worked in functional medicine practices for the last decade, and where it's like, oh, this is a great idea, let's do this. And then it's like, oh, wait, there are a lot of systems that need to be developed, actually, that need to be repeatable so that we are not, making it up for each different patient. And so the systems, that's why we briefly touched on using those filters. And so what I see is really working with providers to go through their patient journey. When is a good step to introduce this? What training does staff need? Because all the members of the collaborative care team really need to have the same vernacular, because we're bringing in the patient into this new language. And so training that staff, getting everybody on board, if you are a provider with staff, is so important, and really designing those systems, as we mentioned, of like being able to follow up with patients who still need to upload their data, because as we know, there are a lot of places in our journey where patients can fall through the cracks.
Right, but the nice thing about PureGenomics is it really does kind of highlight the practitioner-patient partnership. You have to work together. The patient has to submit their data, and you guys can go through it together once the practitioner has the opportunity to assess it. One of the questions that we're getting is, I was going to put this in the general, but I think that it applies here as well. Once the patient inputs the data, does the report automatically get sent to the patient before the practitioner has a chance to review it? Is there an option to go through it together? How do you respond to that?
So yes, when the patient uploads their data, they do receive a patient report. And so PureGenomics believes that since the patient has already purchased that data, then they receive their own patient report. And as we mentioned, it doesn't have diet and lifestyle, and it does not give that medical oversight of how to integrate this into a comprehensive plan. And when a patient uploads their data, then you, the practitioner, since you added them, they're synced with your dashboard. You can actually see the report instantaneously.
Right, exactly. Perfect. Yeah, so I want to open this up just a little bit. Kara, you have gotten a comment that your camera is very high quality, so excellent work there.
Awesome.
Kara's looking good.
Usually I'm just on audio, right? Not video.
I know, right? So actually, that's a great segue. I want to talk about the podcast season for a second. This is another education resource that is for people that are possibly getting started with nutrigenomics. We had 30% of our audience say that they're not currently using this in their practice. 37% say that they want to get started. Tell us about this podcast season that's available for people.
This is kind of the area where I live, or providers who are new to nutrigenomics. You guys will far surpass me after you get going. But Nathan and I launched a Good Medicine on the go. So Nathan Morris and I, the co-creator of PureGenomics with Dr. Heim, we launched Good Medicine on the Go, our podcast. You can find it on all podcast directories, in April of 2020. And our very first season, which we've improved since then. So it's kind of fun to listen to those first episodes. And see our growth. But anyhow, we narrowly focus on 25 SNPs as an entry point for providers new to nutrigenomics. Because as Dr. Heim said, this is a really overwhelming and new frontier of science. It can be challenging to know where to begin. And we wanted to give some practical application for providers who want to get up and going and gleaning insight for patients' top objectives, which we identified as mood, immune resilience, and weight management. And so those 25 SNPs that we focus on is just a suggestion. We've created resources around that for you to learn the core academics of what Kelly teaches from those trait tutorials and the Nutrigenomics course about those 25 SNPs, and then the clinical application of when you're seeing these variants based on the patient's phenotypical expression, right? And so those, 6 episodes, I think, in that series, narrowly define those 25 SNPs, and it has been I think a game changer personally with working with providers is just to give a tangible stepping stone, just like our patients need, right? We can't do everything all at once. So
Great. So we have the Nutrigenomics course by Kelly that's available to you. We have the trait tutorials also by Kelly that are on the YouTube. There is the podcast, and there's a few other, before we jump into the broader Q&A, there's just a few other resources that I want to make sure that people hear about. Lori, you have something starting the first week of February that's going to be really helpful for perhaps that 37% of our audience that's looking to get started with this. Can you talk a little bit about your office hours and what people can expect?
Sure. So the office hours will be a place where you can come by. I'm planning on doing it twice a month, but you can just check the Calendly link to see what the updated dates and times are. I'm thinking every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You register for it. There's only 20 seats available per session, so make sure if you're interested that you jump on that earlier rather than later. And you can just ask any questions you have about the platform, troubleshooting, and I'll also be sharing top tips of the week because, you know, as the weeks go on, I tend to notice a pattern of questions that I get. So I will be going over these top tips that I have. And it's just a good place to come and meet other providers who are also kind of new to all of this. And I just think hang out and talk a little bit about PureGenomics. So.
Yeah, Professor Lori Holt in the house. So Lori's going to be everything for your support, how to use the program, how to get started, and how to troubleshoot certain things. She understands the ins and outs of this really well. And then once you do get kind of up and running, Kara mentioned this in her tutorial, but Kara, you have business coaching sessions as well, right? You want to talk about those briefly?
So I offer a 30-minute complimentary just to hear where you at, where you're starting. Honestly, it helps if you've already met with Lori and understand the features and functions of PureGenomics. That helps us to use our time wisely in that 30-minute complimentary coaching, because then we can really start to help you interpret the report and communicate it right to your patients. That is one of the biggest barriers that I've heard from practitioners is like, okay, there's all this information. How do I communicate it in a way that's empowering? And so that's what I really like to work on, and then also integrating it into your systems so it becomes an integral part of your practice.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So that's excellent. And all of these links, they're in the chat for you guys. You'll also be getting them in a follow-up email, like I said. Okay, so we have a couple more questions coming in. I just want to recap some of the top more basic ones that we covered maybe at the beginning. Possibly people joined a little bit later and missed it. But PureGenomics is a complementary nutrigenomics service that takes in the data from 23andMe or Ancestry reports. It is required to have a genomics report in order to have a genomics report. I know that that sounds silly, but if you want to start using the labs feature and the questionnaire feature and the personalized supplements, you do have to put in a genomics report at baseline. So the labs and the questionnaire are optional, but you do have to have the genetics. And I know that that sounds overly simple, but I know it's exciting to have all of these different features all in one place. As far as labs, you're able to upload from LabCorp or Quest, and we will be hopefully expanding on the different biomarkers and things that we are able to take in, and those will show up in your report. And then finally, your data is never sold or shared by PureGenomics, and so that is very important to us that this is a very safe and secure environment for your data. So, a couple of questions about the evolution. So there's been a couple of different iterations of PureGenomics. Most recently, we've added these new features. So Lori, if a patient's data is already in PureGenomics, are practitioners required to have them re-upload it?
No, you don't have to re-upload it. The system will automatically pull in any new features or any new SNPs, so there's no need to like rerun a report. You just have to log in and click on the patient's report and you'll have the most up-to-date information possible.
Awesome, perfect. And so the existing patients in the system are upgraded automatically. So
Right.
You won't have to re-enter them as a new patient or upload new data unless you wanted to add labs, correct?
Or if you wanted to invite them to take the questionnaire. I did see that was one of the questions on the side there. If you're interested in having your patient who was a previous iteration of PureGenomics, we're on the new iteration. If you wanted them to take the questionnaire, you'll see right in the patient row on your dashboard, it'll say send invitation. As well for the lab, it'll say, I think it's upload lab or something like that. Everything's right there. And you can send a reminder if like they haven't done it and you sent it a couple months ago, you can send a reminder as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And that's something that, Kara, you were saying you can catch when you go through the different filters, right? Data hasn't been uploaded yet and you can send a reminder, right? That's perfect. So if the patients will be getting these notifications, they'll get it via the email that they've registered with, and that it should all be automatic. Jumping into a couple of report questions. So of the recommended supplements, we saw that the supplements are, am I correct, Kelly, in saying that they're ranked in the supplement report? Not supplemental report, in the report.
Rank, but continue. I mean, really good topic.
Yeah, so well, let's talk about the supplements, because we didn't get to dive into that too much in the reports. I think that this is actually a huge thing that's now in the new iteration of this, is that you can access all of the pure encapsulation supplements, but there is a personalized list. Can you talk about that list a little bit and why that's so important to have?
So the personalized list of supplements that are recommended based on the genetics, the SmartQ, the information that's in PureGenomics. You can customize that list so it doesn't become this really long laundry list that's not really tailored to that individual. You can add and subtract products that you want. You can also change the dosing, the dosing protocol, and other recommendations that you want to add or take away. So there's a lot more flexibility with the supplements than in previous renditions of PureGenomics, which I think is one of the strongest updates that we've made, just to allow other information to influence the supplement decisions. Was there anything that I missed there? Anything else that I'm not sure if I answered the question.
No, you answered it perfectly, because I was going to go on to ask you about dosaging, and if that's also able to be customized. It is it's top to bottom customization and personalization for each patient. And as Kara mentioned, starting slow and adopting, you don't have to give them a list of 25 supplements, nor should you, to start with, but giving them something that is achievable. And something that makes sense.
That with genetics, I've gotten the question often, and how does a genetic factor influence dosage? Well, it really shouldn't, and there are a few exceptions, like riboflavin for MTHFR. There are gene diet interaction studies that point to a 1.6 milligram per day dose. It's actually really unusual to have that level of precision with genetically informed dosage protocols. Where it is appropriate based on that type of specific evidence, we will, we'll point to dosing, but you can definitely be confident that the actual product recommendations and the label recommendations for the dosing on that product line up with the genetic information, so that you don't have to do these analyses in your head. That's the last thing you should ever have to do. We do it for you, so you never have to guess or wonder whether that dose on the label of the product that was recommended is right or wrong.
And Kelly, that's something that's nice about this iteration of PureGenomics is it automatically populates the recommendations on the ingredient panels. And then of course you can customize it, but that's streamlining the efficiency of supplement recommendations by already having those recommendations populate for you, and then you can customize accordingly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Kara, we have someone here, you'll love this, someone saying that genetics is only part of it. Lifestyle, diet, environment make up the rest of helping someone's health.
Absolutely. That's why we say genes, nutrition, and wellness, right? Nutrigenomics is just a piece to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, exactly. Lori, a quick question that's come in. How quick does it take to sign up for PureGenomics? So if people wanted to sign up after this webinar, how quickly can they start jumping in? And then once they upload a genomics report, how long does it take for a report to come up? Two-parter
Sure,
there.
yeah. I've been seeing the emails come through while we've been sitting here in the webinar. So the long story short is if you are a licensed healthcare practitioner, your account will be automatically approved. There's no waiting time. You can get started right away because it asks you for that license number. If you are a certified practitioner, such as a health coach or anything else like that, the system will send you an email saying we need a copy of your credentials. Please email it to us here. And you can just send that on over to me. Once I receive it during working hours, I will go in and approve you on the back end and send you a little welcome email. So it's a really quick process, especially if it's like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of thing. I do check my email over the weekends too. So. And then the report itself, it is usually available within less than 5 minutes. It's really quick. So once they start uploading it, they don't even have to keep the web browser open. If they click out of it or navigate away, it'll still automatically upload and you'll get an email letting you know that it's all set.
Awesome, thank you. So it's quick, it's easy, it's hopefully a painless experience. We want this to be something you guys are able to use and adopt in your practices. And so I sent the link for the frequently asked questions page that is available to all of our listeners. And so if one of your questions wasn't answered today, make sure that you're checking out the FAQs. I am just going to, we're over the hour mark, and I just want to realize that my computer's frozen. 1 second. Sorry about that, computer froze. I just wanted to show everyone that you can sign up, as Lori said, today on puregenomics.com, thanks to the people that apparently already have during this talk. And if you wanted to access the education that we've talked about, it will be coming to you in an email. All of the resources that we mentioned today, they're also available in the chat, and they're available if I click on the right window. On puregenomics.com, you can access the PureGenomics Education tab. I recommend signing in, logging in, and that will all be freely available to you. I also mentioned the PureGenomics YouTube page, which you can search on YouTube, and that will come up with all of the trait tutorials as well as the tutorials you saw today. So with that, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. As a small token of our gratitude, there is a coupon code for you. So for a $25 credit in free shipping, the code to use is PG, as in PureGenomics, 122W for $25 credit and free shipping. So those calling in, it is PG, as in PureGenomics, 122W, PG122W. That is all we have for you today. And I just want to thank Kara and Kelly and Lori for the excellent tutorials and for answering these questions, expert advice. I encourage everyone to reach out to them and reach out to the resources that we've shared today. They've really created something great, and I hope you're all able to experience it. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evenings and be well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.